Hi, hello everybody. This is Terry Coaxum, and this is the first time we're launching the Coaxum Report. And I'm super excited. We're going to be talking with you today about some small business challenges. And I have State Senator Kevin Parker from Brooklyn, who is doing a phenomenal job. He is the chairman of the Committee on Energy and Telecommunications, and he's going to be talking to us a little bit about his experience, and he'll talk to us a little bit about working with small business in his community. And I'm just super excited to share the moment with him today on the Coaxum Report. How are you, Senator?
Hey, Teresa, how are you? Great to be on your show.
You know that's not my name. I'm not letting it slide on the show either. So don't even try. Senator Parker, one of the things the Coaxum Report is looking to do is try to continue to advocate for our small business, continue to give them resources. And we're going to be talking about some of the barriers that our small businesses are facing, especially, post-COVID. If there is such a thing, right? We're definitely living in a unprecedented time. We continue to do that. And some of our businesses have rebound, and a lot of our businesses have not. And so, what are some of your experiences in the 21st Senatorial District? Before you talk about that, though, tell us what you represent. Tell me where you're from.
Well, again, thanks for having me on. As you know, I'm in my 19th term in the New York State Senate. I represent a district currently that is part of Canarsie and part of Flatlands, but principally Flatbush and East Flatbush, Midwood, Ditmas Park, Windsor Terrace, and Park Slope, about 318,000 people. I'm the majority whip, as well as the chairman of the Energy and Telecommunications Committee, and I'm the most senior African-American member of the entire New York State Senate. And somebody who's actually spent a lot of time dealing with the issue of small businesses. It really is part of the reason why I actually came to the legislature, because I really, I live in a community I grew up in. I've been living literally at my same address for 46 years. Went to public school, right in the area. Graduated from Midwood High School, and when I look at building up that community, I really think that we have to understand families as social economic structures,
That's
right?
right.
And so you can't have strong families when you don't have a way for people to make money. And the thing that we've stopped talking about over the last 20 years is labor market discrimination. And so the reality is for Blacks and Latinos, and for many women and oftentimes Asians, they can't get jobs in the same place that white people can get jobs, right? It just is
Right.
what it is, right?
Right.
And then generally, we have a economy that's moved from Wall Street to Main Street, right? So with all due respect, Amazon is not coming to save the day, right?
Right.
And so we
Right.
really, in our communities, if we're going to talk about creating full-time jobs at a living wage with benefits, we're going to have to create those jobs ourselves. And
That's
to
right.
the degree you have strong, businesses, you then create an employment base, and then that employment base then becomes the economic floor that families get to stand on,
That's right.
right? And so, part of what we've seen, as you've indicated, in the context of the pandemic, is a lot of businesses, shutting down, particularly
That's
retail
right.
businesses, right? But we also have to understand money and commerce as energy, right? And what do we learn from Earth, Wind, and Fire?
Yeah.
Energy doesn't dissipate; it just recreates in another space and time,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so the reality is that business went away, is that business shifted, and so
Yeah, it's a pivot.
we really have to do a real good analysis of winners and losers during the pandemic, right?
That's
And
right.
so broadly, we can tell you, many retail businesses like Macy's lost, right? We had a bunch of department stores go out of business
Century
in part.
21. Century
That's
21
right. That's
closed.
right.
Yeah.
Because of the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Anybody that was really predicated on foot traffic
That's right.
lost, right? Um, Amazon made money, Netflix made money, right? 3M made money, right? There's companies that made money during the pandemic.
That's right.
Restaurants that were able to shift their model from a butts and seats model to a delivery model,
Hmm.
were able to make money and were able to thrive. And so what we have to do now, as we start beginning to come out of this pandemic period, as really start forecasting where the opportunities are going to be. Uh,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think what you're saying is really important because as I, walk the streets and talk to small businesses, It was a pivot. It was a definite shift. It was a shift as it related to the digital divide. A lot of my mom and pops in my community weren't using technology at all. And when the pandemic happened, they were forced to use technology. Some of the systems weren't set up for that. And so, in doing business analysis for some of these businesses, I literally had to walk them through. It's important to have a website. And in addition to having a website, you have to have a pay system. In addition to having a pay system, you have to have a bank account. So we
Right.
walked them through all of the technical support they needed. And that needs to continue to happen, because at the end of the day, when I walk out to my corner, I want to make sure that my mom and pop, my bodega, if I want to get a loaf of bread, I can get it there, right?
Right.
And so you're absolutely right. We have to make sure that our communities are staying strong, and we have to support them. And that's one of the main things that I tell all of my leaders. We have to continue to support our businesses. We can't take our business out of the neighborhood, especially during this time. We have to make sure that we're supporting our business. Now, one of the things that came up for me when talking to small business, it was about inventory, right? So I know going to my local supermarket, I have custody of temporary custody of my 3-year-old great nephew, and he loved Oreo cookies. And so
Mhm.
something as simple as Oreo cookies, I think they're always going to be around, right? And I went to my local supermarket for 3 months straight. They didn't have it. And he's
Mhm.
saying they're not able to get off the container. Now, my local supermarket isn't going to have a big container. He's going to be a part of that.
Mhm.
So, with that in mind, what are some of the things that we're doing to kind of get back on track with inventory for, especially the smaller business? Like you said, the Macy's and the Amazon and all those. We're not talking about those. We're talking about the businesses in your community where you're serving now.
Well, first of all, let me just say, there's a whole lot going on right now with supply chain,
That's
right?
right.
And so
Hmm.
part of what you're referring to is the breakdown in supply chain during the
Hmm.
pandemic, and we can have a whole conversation about that. As chair of the Energy and Telecom Committee, right
Exactly.
now I'm dealing with the same thing in the context of gas, of natural
Right.
gas, right, and the supply chain issues that's happening. And so it rose in January. It rose everybody's gas prices,
That's right.
or off the chain.
And we
But if
were we
we
were
start,
not happy.
yeah, exactly. But if we're going to start talking about how do we, the need for small businesses, I think we
Yeah.
have to start the more basic than talking about supply chains. I mean, I think the biggest thing is that the problems that were problems before the pandemic have been exacerbated during the pandemic, right? And
Yeah.
so we look in our community, Terry, we have people know how to cook food, don't know how to run a restaurant. They can build a
Hmm.
chair, but they don't know how to sell furniture,
Right.
right? And so access to capital,
That's right.
technical assistance,
That's the number one.
right, are
Hmm.
two of the biggest things, and then contracts and opportunity is third, right? And
Absolutely.
so those things, those persistent problems continue to be barriers to entry for
That's
many
right.
entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs in our community. And so to the degree that me as a lawmaker looking at what do I need to do, I'm still at the place of trying to provide the basics in those three areas, right? And I
Hmm.
think we've done some things in those areas, but not nearly enough. I would tell
Right.
anybody who's looking for access to capital, start with who you bank with.
Hmm.
And sometimes the big banks aren't the best places to bank. You're better banking as a small business at a small bank. You're better
That's
off
right.
maybe at a better with a credit union, because they're
Hmm.
more likely to make a bet and loan you money than a Citibank or a Chase or a
Hmm.
TD Bank. And so that's important. People should look at, if they have local development corporations in their communities, they may have revolving loan funds in which,
Hmm.
oftentimes backed by the state, that may be able to give you some capital. As much as people think that there are the myth of this, minority grant, there are no minority grants out there. People do not give you money to start your business. Is this not what happens?
Hmm.
Um, and so, but you can check with state agencies that oftentimes have monies to help entrepreneurs get their businesses straight. People should check with the SBA, the Federal Small Business Administration, right,
Right.
who has a number of loan products as well. And so there is money out there, but most of the time it's going to be loans as opposed to grants. I know there were some during the pandemic,
That's
but
right.
but the vast majority of it is the regular loan products that are out. Sorry, the regular financial service products that are out
Put it
there
out
are
there.
loans as opposed to grants, right?
Right.
And so check the SBA, check, if you're in New York State, the Empire State Development Corporation. Check your local development corporation. Check your local chamber of commerce. Right? If
Yes.
you're in Brooklyn like us,
Yeah.
Randy Pierce and the folks at the Brooklyn Chamber do a really, really good job at providing some loan services. And so there
Okay.
is access to capital out there, but people have to look and work with those places.
Absolutely. So we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come right back and we're going to talk about some other funding resources as well, like True Fund and List. So let us take a quick break and we'll come right back, Senator Parker. Thank you so much.
I'm setting an example for my kids.
I got me a side hustle.
I have more control of my destiny.
I need multiple streams of income.
It's hard work, but I'm working for me.
A job is cool, but I need more.
It's all about being self-employed. You're tuned into the world of Self-Employed and Rising with Art Taylor, where we bring you the amazing stories of people who are challenging the odds and following their dreams of self-employment. Learn from their successes and be inspired. Hear creative ideas for your business and find tips to take your hustle to another level.
Welcome back. Welcome back. So thank you so much. So one of the things I want to mention is that we're in the marketplace, and in the marketplace, anyone that's listening to us is able to get on to the marketplace and access several tools to be able to help grow their business. They can sell their widgets in the marketplace. Kalaloo Radio, Tempo, Bloomberg, we're all connected here. And so we're here to give you some information, some resources. I'm here now with State Senator Kevin Parker from the 21st Senatorial District in Brooklyn. And we're talking about some of the barriers for our small business. When we went on break, we were talking about financial access to capital. And Senator Parker gave some tips on some of the institutions that are available for our small business to access capital, others that exist. There's a few others that I want to mention. Corporation, and LISC is one of them, as well as True Fund, who are really helping our small business. And so, if you're having barriers to access to capital, Senator Parker, can you give them a quick list again? And then I want to move on to that second barrier, which is equally as important, and that's the technical support.
Yes. So first, what I mentioned is that you're better off with like whoever you bank with, right? Whoever you do your
Hmm.
financial services with, and oftentimes a smaller banking institution, a financial services institution, is better than a larger one, right?
Hmm.
Um, then I mentioned that you may want to look for a revolving loan fund, and so you may want to begin with a local development corporation. You may want to check with a chamber of commerce. You may want to check with your state's economic development agency. Here in the state of New York is the Empire State Development Corporation. They have a number of financial services
Absolutely.
products that people can tap into in order to get the funding that they need for their businesses. The other part too in the content, we really could just have a whole
Conversation
conversation
on that.
just on
Right.
access to finance.
That's right.
But also, let me just make this one last point: is that a larger ask is better than a smaller ask. It's easier for people to see
Absolutely.
interest back, right? Especially when you're dealing with a bank or something like that. You're like, oh, let me just ask for the small amount. You're better off asking for $100,000 than $5,000 because a bank or a financial services institution knows how they're going to get their money back on a $100,000 loan on a 5,000, and a $100,000 loan is nothing in the banking world, right?
Right.
They pull that out of their pocket with lint, and so
You didn't say with Lent.
and so there's I think just a lot to learn about the financial parts, and then you really need to have the technical assistance to run the business part of your business, which again many people don't have, and then is access to contracts, all of which are important for
Right.
budding small businesses to get going.
Well, one of the things that was a huge barrier when small businesses were coming to me for assistance, especially during a pandemic, and they were trying to access capital, it was having their paperwork in order. I'm
Mhm.
not sure if you see that in your district as well. Doing your taxes, making sure your taxes done appropriately. Some of the small businesses were in the red before the pandemic, and I know this is a conversation that you and I had before. We don't want it to go back to normal because we weren't
Right,
getting our share before, and when it was
right,
normal. So we
right,
we want
right,
better, right? And
right,
so some of the small businesses, they didn't have their tax in order. They weren't able to go after some of the loans that became grants, forgiveness grants. The PPP was one of them
right.
because the taxes and all that stuff wasn't in order. So I'm encouraging any of the small businesses that are listening to this broadcast right now, just to make sure that you're doing your taxes. And if your tax preparer is telling you to show red, I encourage you not to do that. Because if you're showing red, you're not going to be able to access the capital that you need to be able to run your business if you have operational costs
Right.
or all these other things. And that was a barrier.
Yeah, so we're definitely seeing that all the time, right? And so
Hmm.
just some basic things that people, should have in terms of the business part of their business, right?
Hmm.
The first is real basic, a business plan, right? You should have an up-to-date
That's
business
right.
plan.
That's
I
right.
encourage people, especially small businesses, to write it themselves so they actually understand what's in the plan. But even if you
Hmm.
hire somebody to write your business plan, make sure you read it cover to cover so you actually understand what you're supposed to be doing. Most businesses don't plan to fail, they fail to plan,
That's right.
right? Most people,
That's right.
most small businesses don't really understand their marginal costs. They really don't
Hmm.
understand their cost structure. They really don't understand their marketing plans or the marketing environment that they're in. And those things that should be basic parts of your business plan. So the first thing is to have a good business plan. The
Hmm.
second thing is have a capability statement, right? And so
Hmm.
something that's quick and dirty. It's kind of like a business version of an elevator pitch, right?
Yeah.
And something you can give people so they can understand what your business is, what you can do, and how much you can handle.
Right. Your
Um,
capability, your
that's right.
capacity. That's right. Your
That's right.
capacity.
And
And
then
yep. Go ahead.
Yep. And then the third thing, as you heard Terry indicate, is your taxes. And this is what's important. Let me just make a differentiation. You need both your business taxes done, but also your personal
Personal
taxes,
taxes.
not
Absolutely.
just for this year, but for the past 3 years.
That's right.
Most financial services institutions that if they're considering giving you money or a loan or whatever, they're going to want to see the business tax returns, but they're also going to want to see your personal tax returns because they
Absolutely.
understand there's a linkage between those two. And if you're showing a loss in either one of those areas, as Terry indicated, it's going to be really hard for you to make moves in terms of, getting equity into your business outside of, just borrowing it from a friend. So all that stuff has to be pulled together. And as Terry kind of generally calls it, your paperwork,
Yeah,
in
right.
order to make some moves, right?
Right.
And that's whether you're applying for a contract with somebody, or you're trying to be a vendor for a large agency, or you're trying to expand and get more capital out of the market. They're going to want to see all of those things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to reiterate the importance of that capability statement, especially when we go into this third one, which is access to contract and contracting opportunities. When you're going after government contracts, they want to see your capacity. They want to know what your NAICS code, which is, and your NIGP codes are, because that's what they're looking at. They want to see if this is the business that can do the work that they're forecasting. And so that capability statement is really important if you're going after the contracts. And we'll talk about when we get to that part. But the technical support part is really important as well, right? We have colleges here, especially in your area. We're looking very strongly at Brooklyn College, because that's a hub for a lot of different, we talk about this all the time. Your area is so diverse, right? You have one of the most diverse districts in Brooklyn. And so, and that means that when businesses are getting started, and I generally say, getting your paperwork in order, you need to have a team on board to kind of help you get to get that paperwork in order. So it seems that we dropped Senator Parker for a little while. We're going to try to pick him back up again. But we're talking about the technical support. We talked about the access to capital and making sure that that you are going after the monies to help you with your operational costs, the money to help you with your payroll. And we gave you some of the resources that you can do that. The Small Business Administration can assist you with accessing capital, as well as your local bank. Your local banker can help you with accessing capital. And then there is organizations and revolving credit organizations that can also help you, right? And then we talked about the technical support. So we want to talk a little bit more about that. I was talking about your diverse area and Brooklyn College being kind of in the center of that, and how important that would be to have a small business development center there that can assist your constituents and other New Yorkers with that technical support. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, we do have one. We do have one. And in fact, I was helped by Senator Schumer and at the time Congressman Ed Towns years ago to get money to start the center. It's run there. I don't, it's not run to my liking. That's another conversation. But there is a place where people in the community can get access to resources. I'm actually now working with some folks on a local development corporation, and I've been working very closely also with the Brooklyn Chamber around providing various financial services and other kinds of benefits that small business owners can have in the community. And so, there are many ways that people can get the help that they need in terms of resources. But certainly, I want to invite folks who are listening to this to reach out to me directly in my office. You can call me at 718-629-6401. Again, that's Senator Kevin Parker at 718-629-6401. You can also email me at parker@nysenate.gov. Again, that's parker@nysenate.gov. And certainly I'm on every significant social media site. And so you can always find me at Senator Kevin Parker on social media and send me a message that way. All right.
Okay, Senator Parker, we're going to take another quick break, and then we're going to come back, and then we'll talk about access to contracting opportunities. And we'll talk a little bit more about the Small Business Development Centers, as well as SCORE that's under the SBA, and the small business services that is available here for our businesses to get the technical support they need to be successful. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Thank you, Senator.
I used to watch BET, MTV, VH1, now I watch Tempo. Soca, Calypso, Reggae Dancehall. Don't stall, better get tuned in to the tempo. Don't have cable, they got an app. Go to your app store, download that. Whether it's tourism, cuisine, or the social scenes, if it ain't Tempo, it's a rap. Who got the Caribbean views? Tempo. It's the latest in Caribbean news. Tempo. You tryna cook Caribbean food? Tempo. You know they got the music videos too. Tempo. Who got the Caribbean views? Tempo. It's the latest in Caribbean news. Tempo. You tryna cook Caribbean food? Tempo. You know they got the music videos too. Tempo.
MTV Caribbean channel. What's the name? What's the name?
Let's go.
And that's why tempo is so so important and sort of on point, because there's a tempo to everything that we do in the Caribbean. You know what I'm saying? It's a heartbeat.
We have our whole channel, man. The Caribbean is so diverse.
And for them to recognize that and to launch a channel for that, that is totally amazing.
I started to think about all of that, and I was like, wow. I said, well, wait a minute. These are all the things that make great television.
This is your Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini. Guess where people with cash are putting their money? I mean, people with a lot of cash. Investors put $53 billion into commercial properties in Los Angeles, Orange County, and the Inland Empire this past year, and that makes the region more popular for real estate investors than any other place in the nation. Mike Longo is LA-based president of CBRE Capital Markets, and he says apartments and industrial properties were the big attraction.
People need to put their products in the warehouses now because the transaction time for distribution has gone up, and that places an extreme value on land and warehouses in Southern California.
And it looks like money could be flooding into one LA property right now. I'm talking about the historic May building. The social commerce platform MC has its eye on the former department store for MC Studio, and MC could use the physical space to help influencers create their own online storefronts. And that's your Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm
Hi, so welcome back. So I'm on the Coaxum Report with Senator Kevin Parker, and we've been talking about some of the barriers for small business success and giving some tools and some tips on how to be successful. And so, Senator Parker, we've talked about some of the barriers as it related to access to capital. You've given some nuggets and some tips on how to access capital around New York City and New York State. And then we also talked about some of the technical support that's available that can assist our small businesses with, and what I would say, get their paperwork in order, but more importantly, make sure they're doing their taxes, they have a capability statement, and they're doing a business plan, right? So those are some of the things, two of the barriers we talked about. The third barrier, which is, I believe, is extremely important as well, especially since New York has like 30%. They're asking for minority women-owned businesses have 30% of the contracting opportunities here in New York, and so that's a huge deal for small businesses that are looking to really grow. That's an opportunity for growth. So talk to me a little bit about that, Senator.
Yeah, Terry, I'm gonna make it a little bit plainer, right?
Okay.
Because the first point I want to make is that we're talking about this not because we necessarily care about petty bourgeois capitalism, right? I think you care about petty bourgeois capitalism. For me, small business development is really about employment and is about economic stability in community.
That's right, in a community.
Right?
Absolutely. We start off with that. Yep.
That's right. So, again, we have an economy that's moved from Wall Street to Main Street. And we should understand families as social economic dynamics and not just purely social.
That's right.
Right. And so, and when you have people in business, they're then able to hire other people, and we're able to develop more of a financial base in our communities, right? And so, contracting out has always been a way that communities have elevated themselves, particularly even white communities, right? So, some of you may remember Ross Perot, right?
Yeah.
Famous billionaire. Ross Perot made his first $1 million in the state of New York processing Medicaid forms.
Ah,
most people
I
don't
didn't know that. Yeah,
right?
okay.
And so, and something like innocuous, right? Like nobody even thinks about who does that work, but like the agencies don't do it themselves; they contract that work out, and people are literally making billions of dollars doing contracting out with the city and the state. So let's understand this: the state of New York has the third largest budget in the entire country, right? After the federal government, the state of California, and the state of New York. Then the city of New York, city, not the state, has the fourth largest budget. So understand this. The city of New York has a budget that's larger than 48 states, including Texas and Florida, which have populations as larger than the state of New York.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
And so the enacted budget this year is going to be approximately $216 billion. They're going to have over $100 billion budget on the city level.
Wow.
And when you look at them, if you even just say the numbers are generally 25% of their budgets are going to be contracted out.
That's right.
Right? We're talking about now several tens of billions of dollars, right? We're talking about over $50 billion just from those two agencies, those two entities. That has nothing to do with every other municipality that's contracting stuff out. That's just the state of New York and then
the city of New York. Wow.
$50 billion worth of economic activity, right? Because we have to contract out everything that we don't make ourselves, right? And we're not nearly seeing the level of Black, Latino, Asian, and women participation in that contracting out process that we should. So I encourage minority businesses to look at what you're doing. If you're looking to be in business, you're not sure what you want to be in business for, you should look at the state of New York or the city of New York's website and figure out what can you provide to them. You may even look at how you do vendor diversity with private companies, right? As the chair of the Energy and Telecom Committee, I know there's very large companies I deal with every day, right? Charter Spectrum, or Altice, Optimum, National Grid, Con Ed, right? Verizon, T-Mobile, right? All have very large budgets that they operate here in the state of New York, and their vendor diversity programs are very, very large, right? So on the private sector, on the public sector, there's literally tens of billions of dollars out there that we really should be competing for, but a lot of times we don't know the processes. We're not looking in that way, and so we're just thinking about selling trinkets to communities. And let me just make this last point. Small businesses don't end up being big businesses, right? Apple, they talk about Apple starting in a garage, but Apple's first contract wasn't let me just, they didn't pull up the car and start selling, computers out the back of a Chevy, right? Like they got a very, very large contract as their very first contract. And so those are the way, if you want to be big, you got to start thinking big, you got to start acting big. Right. And so those become the ways that real wealth can be built in our communities.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you're talking about contracting and contracting opportunities. One of the things that I do on a daily basis as I work with small businesses and help them get certified, help them get city certified, help them get state certified. And one of the things that I have my businesses do is I have them go to, the Green Book and look at all the agencies that are in the city and make a decision. I tell them to pick 3 agencies, ideal agencies that you want to work with. So is it, is it Department of Education? Is it Corrections? Is it NYPD? What can you do for that agency? And then we start looking at the projections of what those agencies are looking for. And then we break that down to what they're able to do. One of the things I tell my business though, don't bite off more. And my grandmother used to say this, don't bite off more than you can chew. Know what your capacity is, right? Because you don't get a do-over with the government. So that is, you have to understand the process, and there are agencies out there like my agency that can help you through the process, help make sure that you're getting the information that you need, help sure you're putting in the documents you need, getting you that capability statement, making sure that your website is tight, doing all that stuff. But more importantly, know what you can do, right? And this is something that we talk about all the time. You always say, just because you can bake cookies, right? That don't mean you should be a baker.
Right. Did you be making bakery? Right.
Right. So you have to know what you have the capacity to do. So that is really, really important. The second part of it is, if you're not in it, there's no opportunities for you to get a contract, right? So a lot of my small businesses, when I start talking to them about contracting opportunities, we have to go from soup to nuts, right? We have to go from, number one, what are you in business to do, right? And one of the things, Senator, that we talk about all the time, we're running our business, and if you're running a business and you're not making money, you're not running a business. You just have a hobby.
That's right.
So
if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense.
If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense, right? So we have to make sure that we're going from soup to nuts. You are in business to make money. You're not in business for a hobby. And if you want a hobby, then you have a hobby. That's okay. But if you're in business, we want to make sure that you're making money. We gave a lot of nuggets today. The first one is how to access capital. That is number one. That's always been number one. Even when I was the advocate for small business, businesses are looking for access to capital. The second thing that they're looking for is technical support. And sometimes they don't even know they need it, Kevin. Senator Parker, they don't even know they need the technical. Don't even know they need the technical support until they run into a roadblock. And that's when they start looking for the small business development centers that are in the neighborhood, or small business services, or the PTAC program. There's a PTAC program in New York.
Right.
If you're looking to do contracting, the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, or SCORE with the Small Business Administration under the federal government, they are retired executives that have done the work, that are putting in their time as volunteers, that can help small businesses get that information and get to moving forward as well. So there's a lot of technical support out there, but we need to make sure that we have the capacity to do the work. And then the next level of that, in addition to New York City, New York State, is the federal government. If you're an 8A business, you have an opportunity to make billions of dollars. And a lot of our businesses are leaving that money on the table, Senator Parker. So, it's great that we're sharing this information with them. And so I'm hoping that anyone is out there listening, you're tuned in right now to the Marketplace, Honolulu Radio, Tempo, and also the Bloomberg Network. And so we are talking about the Coaxum report. We're giving information on how our small businesses are able to, one, these 3 B's I always talk about. So the barriers is the first thing we're talking about. In our next segment, we're going to talk more about the best practices, who's doing it better, right? You talked about Ross Perot and how he was, and I didn't even know that, how he processed Medicaid, applications and was able to make his first million. We have tons of businesses that have the capacity to do that type of work. And the work is on the table now with everything being digital and everything being online. And so we're asking our businesses to take the opportunity now to look into going after some of those contracts and making sure that we're able to take them to the next level to grow. Did you want to add anything else to that, Senator Parker?
Well, I just want to, end where we began, and you began actually talking about the context that we were coming out of in terms of the pandemic, and how, there's both some brick and mortar issues, but then also how people are trying to transition into, virtual and online businesses. And I think that we talked about it in the beginning as an obstacle, but it really very much can be a benefit. People want to be in business. You should be thinking about being, online, or how do you do things virtually? How do you do things without brick and mortar? Because it's the cost to entry is a lot lower. Rent and hiring employees, oftentimes can be 75% of your costs. And so if you're able to do something online, if you're able to kind of run your business virtually, that's, you're now winning, because, you have all of this, you can make all this profit without having all of the overhead. Yep. Right. So people should consider, if they're going into business, and it's something that can be done both ways. To start out, you should at least start out virtually, and it really can work out for you. But again, that's going to be dictated by your business plan.
Absolutely. We're going to take our final break, Senator Parker, and then we're going to come back for one last bit of nuggets to help our small businesses to think and grow. So give us one last break, Sen Parker. We'll be right back.
Time. It has a different meaning in the U.S. Virgin Islands. It goes backwards, forwards, it stops. St. Croix is rooted in history. So much of it still remains untouched.
I remember running on these streets as a kid. This trap was right down there. It opened the same year I was born. This is where the original Crucian hook was born. It's the symbol of these islands. And I wanted to have my hands in that very same history. I want to be able to pass it down to my family while still putting a new spin on it.
The U.S. Virgin Islands, we have an amazing culture that developed over time from all over the world.
St. John feels so untouched. Being underwater is like another world. There's no worries, there's no stress. I can just escape. This is my happy place. My passion for scuba diving came at just being fascinated with the water and wanting to be a mermaid. And this is the closest thing I can get to achieving mermaid status. Canadians just love being outdoorsy. We live for adventure, so we love anything hiking, being on the water, diving, snorkeling, and St. John has it all.
It's like some spirit is protecting the island and keeping them raw. The Makajumbi watches over the island. From up there, they keep the evil spirits away. The nightlife in St. Thomas is absolutely amazing. There's always something going on. Everyone comes together to dance and catch a vibe. We're always celebrating. We celebrate freedom, culture, the food, the smell, the music. It's always a celebration. The people here are probably the most priceless thing because they keep the culture going. There's so many different influences on these islands. Food from all kinds of countries coming together in new dishes. All of us came from somewhere, but all of we call this home. The VI is a new melting pot. This is where the past and the future comes together.
Hello. So we're back for the final version of this segment. We have State Senator Parker out of Brooklyn 21st Senatorial District, and we've been talking to small businesses about some of the barriers We talked about access to capital being the first barrier, and Senator Parker gave some nuggets on how to access capital, some of the different avenues of accessing capital. We also talked about technical support for our small businesses, and then we ended the segment talking about contracting opportunities. And so, as we wrap up this segment, I'm going to pass it back to Senator Parker to just give us a few more nuggets on these three barriers that our businesses face. And also, we want to leave on a high note, right? We're going to give some of to make sure that they have some of the solutions that we discussed throughout the whole segment. Because you gave some barriers, but we also gave some best practices and a couple of solutions on how to access capital, on how to get the technical support that they need free of charge at these centers, and then lastly on some of the contracting opportunities and what to look for. So, Senator Parker?
Yes, I mean, again, I think that you've hit it right on the head. I think that, again, this is really important that we've had this conversation, because I think this is how we turn our communities around, particularly in the context of a pandemic, right? And so access to capital, and looking at chambers of commerce, looking at small lending institutions, checking out local economic development corporations, looking at flagship economic development agencies, either on the city or the state level, all should, kind of provide, opportunities, including the SBA, right, to get access to these resources. And as Terry indicated, we have, again, in our community, people who know how to cook food, don't know how to, run a restaurant. People who can build a table, don't know how to sell furniture. And so the technical assistance and people knowing the business part of their business.
That's right.
Really, really important. There's a lot of different organizations that do technical assistance around that kind of work. Some organizations we didn't mention, like WeBo, right?
That's right. WeBo. That's right.
Project Enterprise, right? We talked about SCORE, which is a mentorship program that used to be part of the federal government, now has spun off as a separate nonprofit organization that provides former corporate CEOs and executives to help you with your business and act as a mentor for you, right? So all those become really good opportunities for you to kind of understand the business part of your business. And then contracting, and there's lots of agencies. On the city level, we have the city controller's office that, and on the state level, we have the state controller's office that both do a lot of work around contracting. We have MWBE offices that do work. Almost most of the major corporations have vendor diversity programs, and oftentimes they hold programs and do events in which people can learn how to access the various programs that they run, in some in the government, some in the private sector. And so all those things become options in terms of, getting the kind of large contracting opportunities that allows you to scale your business and to simultaneously make a profit for yourself.
Absolutely. And I know you mentioned a controller's office. I know one of the tools that the controller's office have in place is they have a scorecard. And so they keep a score of the agencies that are in the city that are doing the work and doing the work well. And one of the things that I encourage any of the listeners, especially if they're in New York, to look at the scorecard and see who is two things I'm going to have them look at, right, Kevin? Senator Parker, one, I'm going to have them look at the scorecard to see who's doing it right and see about getting some of those opportunities, but also who's doing it wrong, because that may be a better way to get in the door, right? So if you're looking at these agencies and they are not meeting the mark, then that's the agencies that you should also target, because they have to meet the mark. And so those are really good ways for you to kind of figure out how you fit in. If you have the capacity to do the work, then you can reach out and see what those agencies are doing. And a lot of these agencies, like you said, they have these diversity programs in place to kind of get them to meet the market. So that scorecard is really helpful in trying to determine some of the opportunities that are out there as well.
Right, absolutely. And then lastly, we talked about the idea of operating virtually, and the fact that virtual business can be really a opportunity for you if you structure it right. And again, none of these things are kind of automatic home runs, right? Businesses don't plan to fail; they fail to plan. And so you want to plan your work and work your plan. And I think that's the best advice that you can really get from either one of us about how to be successful in business and how to more importantly be profitable.
Absolutely. And one of the things I want to add is know where you want to be. right? So and that's a part of the plan. A lot of times when I have conversations with my small business, they don't know how much money they want to make. And so if you don't know how much money you want to make, how are you going to get there? So,
Right.
know what your budget is, know what your operational costs are, and then plan where you want to be. And I think that going towards that plan, you're going to land somewhere, right? And so hopefully you'll be able to successfully outpace your plan. But if you aren't, at least you'll have a direction to go in. So I'm asking my businesses, whoever's listening today, to make sure that you, like Kevin said, plan. Make sure that you're following that plan diligently to get you to the next level, because we want you to scale, we want you to grow. And Kevin, Senator Parker talked a lot about this, small businesses and the economy. For us to be able to continue to be successful in our neighborhoods, we need that. We need to have small businesses. They are the engine that drive our economy, but more importantly, they're putting the food on the table of the people in our community. And so that's why it's really important to patronize your small business, to to bring business, if you're a small business owner, to make sure you're doing things and giving back in the community as well. And if you are in Brooklyn in the 21st Senatorial District, make sure you are reaching out to Kevin Parker, so that, because he's doing a lot of wonderful things in the community to make sure that our businesses are thriving and growing. And so, Senator Parker, I really want to thank you for being on the show today. You made it, my launch show, you made it really engaging, gave a lot of good nuggets. I like to give nugget solutions. And so I want to kind of leave on a high note. And so if there's one other thing or two other things that you can kind of leave the business with at this point, I want you to kind of, I'm tagging you in to take us out with that.
The biggest thing is that remember that, you are enough, that, you were made for such a time as this,
That's
that
right.
all the things that you need are within inside of you. And you just need to be confident enough and determined enough to see that your dream around running a small business, owning a small business, and building your community is within the length of your reach. And so reach out, grab it, and make it happen. But also remember, you're not doing it alone. Use
Absolutely.
people around you. Reach out to me. Reach out to other elected officials. We're here to help.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Senator Parker. And for all of you that are listening, this has been a Coaxum Report. And so we'll be back next week, and we'll be talking a little bit more about some of the best practices. And so hopefully you'll take these nuggets that Senator Parker has imparted upon us today, his wisdom about what's going on in the community. So we talked about, just one small recap, we talked about access to capital and gave some nuggets on access and capital. We also talked about technical support and going after those contracts. I mean, he said billions with a B. That's real money, right? So we want our small business to go after that real money, because with that money, we'll be able to grow our communities better too. Put that money back into our education system, put that money back into our infrastructure, and make sure, the other districts will thrive like the 21st Senatorial District. So again, thank you for your leadership, Senator Parker, and I look forward to catching up with you on these streets. Thank you for being a part of the Coaxum Report. Have a good one.